let's kick this off. Hello folks, and welcome to the Customer Success Office Hours for the VMware Cloud on AWS Customer Success Architect team. As usual, we have a good array of people online from across a number of divisions within VMware. I'll just have a quick sort of intro here. We've got my colleague DeMarcus and Ricky online, Annabella, one of our Customer Success Manager team, and we have a number of folks from support and a few other divisions, as it seems. So if what we normally do on these calls is we kind of dive into initially into the release notes to see if anything has changed in the last few sort of days, last weeks, and then we I'm just going down, by the way, allowing everybody to talk in the group if they want to. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, anything they'd like to raise, anything that's come up over the last couple of weeks that we haven't discussed before, or any outstanding questions, do feel free to use either the Zoom Q&A or chat panels, or if you're dialed in via Twitch and you're watching us live, use the Q&A panel or the My Chat panel in Twitch. And again, if you're watching the recording on YouTube, feel free to add a comment, subscribe, or ask us any questions in the comments field there as well. So welcome. Today we're going to have a bit of a talk about SRM, or DR as a service, with my colleague Ricky. First of all, just a very quick highlight on the release notes. As you can see, there's nothing come out in the last couple of weeks since we kind of went into the release notes. There's been an interesting I won't say development, but something that's cropped up recently that myself and Darren, who's online, have started to see a few times, and I've seen some internal conversations about this a bit, so I thought it'd be worth briefly discussing before we hand over to Ricky, and that's the topic of support and when we do and when we don't support things. You may think this is a really obvious one here, is if the product's in support, then we'll support it, and if it's out of support, we don't support it. However, in a solution-based environment where you have a lot of interdependent and moving pieces, for example, in a hybrid cloud environment, you may find that the pace of some programs outpaces the others. So the release cadence, for example, of HCX is obviously much faster than the release cadence of vSphere, for example. What we started to see now is that we have, I'd say, a considerable install base out there that are still running on vSphere 6.0, which I'm hoping you all knew, but if you didn't, went end of general support, I believe, in March of this year, meaning that product is no longer officially supported. And this came up a couple of times, actually. One that Darren raised where a customer called in, they'd kind of correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, but they had a challenge with SRM, Site Recovery Manager, and during the kind of the diagnosis that you guys performed, you realised that they're actually running with an out-of-date version of vSphere on-prem, which was actually potentially causing the issue. Yeah,
that's right.
So, carry on. So yeah, I guess that it's just worth highlighting that, like I said before, I know it's obvious, but if you want support for something, the product has to be in support. And I guess as the release cadence speeds up for all things cloud, it's just something that's going to impact your internal process and your internal upgrade cadence. Now, obviously, with VMC, for example, being a managed service, you don't necessarily have to worry about updating and upgrading all elements of it, but there's still some involvement you have to have. For example, HCX, you have to manually commit to upgrade that, as you do with the on-prem elements for that. So you still have to be involved, even though VMware are going to manage that platform for you. But yeah, I don't really have much of an answer around if you want something supporting. you must be it must be using a supported platform, really. But it's I don't know whether it's a grey area, and I thought I'd just highlight on screen one of the reasons why it might be a grey area, and this is our own VMware product Interoperability Matrices, which title rolls off the tongue. And what you can see here is if we select VMware Cloud on AWS as the primary solution, and then add in the additional platforms, we can see here that VMware Cloud on AWS version 1.10, which is the M10 release that we're currently all on, still lists vSphere 6 as, or vCenter Server 6 and ESX 6 as being compatible products. So theoretically, they are compatible with VMware Cloud on AWS, but that doesn't mean to say they're supported. And I think this is one of the things that a couple of customers have come back to us about. So one of the things I'm chasing the documentation teams on at the moment, as you can imagine, there's quite a few individual documentation teams that are all product aligned, is trying to make sure that we keep our own products and documentation in sync, so that if a product goes end of support, we then hide it from being a compatible product, because theoretically it no longer is a compatible product because it's no longer supported. Where there's a grey area there, I guess, is that you can buy a license from us and you can install the software on-prem, and there's no mandate that you must update that software. You know, we've got customers running, you know, NT4 out there still, so you can still do it obviously, but you just have to accept at your own risk that that product will suddenly no longer be covered by support, and the risk is on you at that point. Any comments on that at all? Anything apart from the, well, you know, obviously kind of statement? Any feedback or commentary on that?
You know that we moved to even odd. I don't know. I joined late the call, but we have now odd and even releases. Yeah. So
Indeed, yeah.
this is, yeah. So we have like essential release and optional release. You have to understand that every new SDDC, for example, will stay on version 10, the even one, until version 12 will come. Okay, so this is really important, because even if we release version 11 on 5 of June, as you can see on the fifth bullet down, if you deploy a new SDDC today, it will be on version 10 v5. Okay, so it will stay on even release, and this is starting now. And so now the cadence is 6 months, not 3 months anymore. But we release 11, so we have features on 11, and for example, the transit gateway and the SDDC group and everything. So you really have to ask your TAM or your SC or your customer support to be on release 11. And for that, we have to open a case and upgrade the organization parameters. So the next deployment you're going to do is going to be release 11. This is not automatic.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, Gilles. Thank you for bringing that up. I guess tying into that then, so like you would do on-prem, right? If you are planning a major upgrade or you're planning any kind of work that changes the release versions, you're going to want to make sure that the releases you deploy are compatible with each other. So it's very important for us, VMware as a company, to make sure things like this is one of the resources you would go to check is actually valid and up to date. There is another site that I can share with you as well. I think I've shared before, and this is in the docs area that actually correlates the SDDC version with the underlying ESXi, vCenter Server, NSXT versions. Okay, and also quite importantly as well, the virtual machine hardware versions. Okay, so when you go and check your interop matrix, you kind of need to make sure that what you're deploying, not only with the rest of the VMware product set, but with your third-party tooling as well, say your backup vendor or any other kind of software that you integrate with is also compatible. Our software vendors are always pretty good at staying up to date. Every now and again, though, we do find that one kind of slips or misses a release. So it's highly critical that before you upgrade or request your platform to be upgraded in VMC, that actually every element of your platform will work with it. Okay, any other thoughts on that at all? Any challenges or anything that you've noticed around that? Nope. Okay. Oh, there was noise. No questions. Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is my colleague Ricky has been doing some SRM DR as a service work recently, and we sort of discussed around topics, for these calls, and he said he'd give a bit of an insight into what he's been working on. So what I will do is I'll stop sharing. If you're ready to go, Ricky, I'll stop, and then you can share and take it over.
Sounds good.
Cool. So as by way of introduction, Ricky he's the American me, basically. I think that's maybe doing you a massive disservice, but he is one of my colleagues in the customer success architecture team in the Americas region. So let me just share this on screen. There we go. Hope everybody can see that. Might be a little bit small. Is everyone all right with that?
Small. Do you want to move it to a different monitor?
Yeah.
Looks okay to me, but that's just me.
Cool. Well, if anybody, this will be a test. Anybody that, any of the attendees online, if you've got a problem with seeing this, please just unmute yourself and give us a shout. I don't want you to not be able to see what we see on screen.
That better?
Yeah, much better. Nice.
Okay.
Cool. Go for it.
I mean, as everyone knows, DRS as a service is something that VMC is really built for. We have a ton of customers using this as a use case. In recent discussions with some of my customers, they currently have a setup similar to what you see on your screen right now. So they have the corporate data center, and they have 2 SCDCs. For them, they're in 2 different regions, US East 1 and US East 2. Now, what they are doing is they're pretty much migrating a bunch of production VMs from the corporate DC into US East 1, which is going to be their pretty much main site in the cloud. Now, they're using SRM in the cloud, and what they're doing is recovering their production VMs onto their second SCDC in US East 2. So we started discussing this, and this is kind of their plan of how they have it set up currently at this time. On the back end, one of the things that they have done is with their AWS native services, they have a dedicated direct connect pipe. They're in the talks now of taking that dedicated direct connect, carving out a private VIF, and connecting it to the US East 1 protected site. Now, when we started discussing this, one of the things that kind of came up is that this is going to change how SRM flows currently. When we actually put a direct connect in place, all traffic that is management traffic will flow back on-prem. So this is a proposed drawing of what they are looking to do moving forward. And what that presents, you should be able to see my screen again. So this is what they are proposing to do moving forward. They want to put a direct connect pipe. Now, how this changes is that we can no longer have SRM traffic flow between directly the protected SCDC and the recovered SCDC. The ESXi management traffic, vSphere replication traffic, and all that will need to flow down to the corporate data center, where they will have to do some routing and have it pretty much plumb back up to the second SDC on the US East 2 side. Now, this is something that they were not aware of during the planning, and they're in discussions now of how really they're going to make this work. They have some, concerns of, are there going to be additional egress charges and things of that nature now that we have to flow down here? So we're kind of trying to work through exactly, is this a correct move for them? What benefits do they actually gain from it? Now, the things that we're working through right now is, it's stated in our documentation that yes, ESXi management traffic, if there's a direct connect in place, will always traverse through the direct connect. It will not write over the VPN or anything else. This is something they kind of read and glossed over, but they didn't really think about when they're coming up with SRM. So now that we're actually sitting here and talking about the SRM deployment, it's becoming more of a pain point for them. So this got me thinking, and I was asking the other architects, have other TSAs run into this? Have other customers gone through this? Are they okay with this? If not, what is their preferred method of doing this? So, I've had conversations with Will and other CSAs about this. Why should this be done this way? Is it the right way to go?
Ricky, can I just interrupt for a second? I think Stu had a question. Are you able to unmute yourself, Stu? Or yeah, you're unmuted now, mate.
see your questions. Q&A.
Yeah, Stu, you are unmuted, so you can ask away. I don't know if we're not hearing you because you've got your wrong audio selected. But feel free to ask via chat as well, and I can relay it to. Sorry, we can't hear you, Stu. Yeah, correct. If you ask your question in chat, and I will relay it on to Ricky for you. Sorry, Ricky, if you carry on, mate, and I'll interrupt you. Okay, he's covered your question. You covered his question about Direct Connect anyway, so cool. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
So like as I mentioned, this was something I kind of wanted to highlight because it seems to be a point that not only this customer, a few of my customers that are heavily looking to SRM, when I bring this fact up that if they have a Direct Connect in play, that the traffic has to flow back down to their on-prem and then pretty much be routed back up to a secondary SDDC is something that I guess people really aren't 100% aware of, and it is a point that we really need to start bringing up with customers, especially when they bring up DR as a service for VMC and AWS. So I just want to kind of highlight what my customer is going through, some of the pain points, and just that people know that if you're having discussions around SRM, please double check the connectivity of how they're doing it from on-prem to their SDDC, because this could have impact of how things are going to flow.
Okay, so Stu actually had a couple of questions around. So, is there a cost implication of having to go through Direct Connect rather than VPC Peering across regions? And obviously, Direct Connect may need to be bigger. Okay, so it's interesting actually. I was going to ask why they had a VPN connection to the recovery site as opposed to a Direct Connect. But also, we're lucky that if he's still with us, Gilles is also on.
Yes, sorry, I was on another call in
No, that's totally fine, mate. I thought you may well jump in and start talking about the Managed Transit Gateway as well as being a potential.
So from a cost point of view, I think it's about the same. I think VPC Peering is also 2 cents per gig.
Yeah.
And Direct Connect is also 2 cents per gig egress charge. We are bringing VMware Managed Transit Gateway, and that is now a release 11 feature that will enable you to connect SDDC as VPC attachments, actually. So VPC attachment is 50 gig, okay? And so you will have the capability to connect SDDCs together, but also SDDC to VPC from a customer point of view, and going back to on-prem via Direct Connect, but this way is Direct Connect Gateway.
Yeah.
Direct Connect Gateway with a transit VIF, because we are talking about transit gateways. So this is the situation that we have today in preview. And if you have customers interested, so please, you can contact me or your VMC specialist in whatever country. What else? The cost is really different, because with cost, the moment you introduce a transit gateway, and it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Transit gateway is priced per attachment per hour, okay? 6 cents in Europe per attachment per hour. And then you pay on top of that, you pay the data that goes through a transit gateway. So it's also 2 cents, and this is not egress or ingress. It's just process data through the transit gateway, 2 cents per gig. Here we are. So I mean, you need to take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, not a budget option, I guess there then. So what it may provide though is it may provide a more scalable solution for certain customers where they've got many sites rather than just a single master site to a recovery site maybe. But yeah, did that cover your question, Stu? Got it. Transit
Stu
gateway, but for
cannot
DR
speak.
application. Yeah.
He cannot speak. Okay.
No, Stu's mute today.
Okay.
And the other thing he mentioned is why VPN connection here instead of direct connect. Originally, when we were in talks, before they purchased the direct connect, they were doing a hosted direct connect, which only allowed them to do one private VIF.
Gotcha. Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, that became because the direct connect is an additional cost. And again, it's not a cheap option for certain customers. In the end, I should probably update my drawing for them. They have gone with the dedicated one, so they will be able to put a direct connect on both ends, because the direct connect, as you mentioned, is 2 cents a gig, where VPN, I think it's like 5 cents a gig for transferring data.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And it's 5 cents a gig if you go out from VMC. Yeah,
Right.
because this is like internet traffic. The big advantage here is we don't really touch internet, although
Yep.
it is going through internet, but in fact it stays in the AWS network.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
It's like
we are
fake
using public
internet, isn't
IP
it?
from we're using public IPs from Amazon. So this data never leaves the Amazon network, to be honest. Although it's called internet, it's going to be charged at 5 cents per gig. That's
Right.
correct.
It's Amazon's internet.
It is Amazon internet, yes, definitely. But it will never touch the public internet. And also from an AWS point of view, I mean, it really depends on your provider for everything related to direct connect. Because I saw a lot of design where the provider the provider, I mean, the DX location where you have your direct connect, um, the backend to the customer environment is actually like MPLS circuit or frame relay circuit or whatever is like from a networking point of view. But the BGP session sometimes does not go up to the corporate data center. Sometimes it stops at the DX location on the customer router, because at the DX location you have a customer router and an AWS router. So it really depends what you want to do. And most important is the fact that you have BGP sessions going through both on VPN and on the direct connect, and then you will be able to go ahead with that.
Cool. Thanks, you. Really, really useful info.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Most problematic today with the customers, because we release version 11 in beginning of June, so we start having customers now want to do proof of concept with a transit gateway managed by VMware. And for that, if you want to go on-prem, it's only via Direct Connect Gateway, and so you need a transit VIF. And sometimes it's complicated to get a transit VIF. It really depends on your provider. You know that the different type of Direct Connect, that there are 3 types of Direct Connect, and they all depends on the provider. You have AWS that gives you a dedicated connection. You have partners that give you a hosted connection, and some other partners that will give you a hosted VIF. Hosted VIF you can forget. There is no transit VIF with that.
Yeah.
But with the other two, you can have 50 plus 1, so 50 private or public VIF and 1 transit VIF. Or if it's hosted by a partner, you have 1 connection. It could be public, private, or transit. It's up to you to decide. So sometimes it's not cheap. It takes time and effort to go and get a transit VIF from somewhere. And so, I'm pushing the BU to get VPN support, but it will take some time. It will take some time.
To be fair, though, we do see most people who expand within VMware Cloud on AWS and put more and more production workloads on, we see them going down the dedicated direct connect route anyway, as opposed to being hosted primarily. But like you say, it's a cost, so it's a design decision, right? And that one comes back to cost. So any of the other sort of design conversations you had with your customer, Ricky, around this, were any other sort of major major lessons learned or interesting points that came up?
So these are a lot of the interesting points when we're discussing Direct Connect. We discussed dedicated hosted option. When the customer was talking to their partner, because they were very cost conscious, they brought up a hosted VIF, and they came back, and when I was asking if we could use that, turns out VMC and AWS does not support a hosted VIF. Hosted connection is fine, but a hosted VIF is something that's not supported. So it just kind of it was an eye-opening experience of seeing different ways that we can connect with Direct Connect and the different options that the customer has for it. And like as I mentioned, it really is a design choice and a cost choice of what they can afford and what they are really planning to do.
Sure.
Yeah,
And are they?
we can do hosted VIF via some tricks.
already, I'm not liking
No,
the sound of this.
seriously. Normally people will think that okay, I want a direct connect connection, so I connect this direct connect to the VGW on the VMware cloud environment. That's the normal way to do it. Okay,
Right.
that's fine. Now, what we can do, what we can really do is that that every SDDC has an attached VPC. Okay.
Yep.
So we can connect the direct connect to the attached VPC VGW. Okay. And then build a hosted V from that VGW to our VGW on VMC. It's a dirty trick, but it works. Okay.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, you can do it. And the only thing is that when you have the direct connect connected to the connected VPC, so you use the customer account. Okay, it's the customer VPC. What you have to do is that you just have to add another account, and then this hosted VIF is created, and then you put the shadow account, the org VMware account, and then you will be able to do that. Yeah, the master in this type of connectivity, let's call it this way, is Jeff Moore. Okay, if you know Jeff Moore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's one of our partner solution architects, right? So he works for the VMware Cloud partner team. What I would say though is there are solutions that are possible, and there are solutions that you should try. And
support it.
Yeah. So I guess just because you can doesn't mean say you should would be an answer I would give on that one. The complex management overhead and complexity of that may sort of rule it out. Not that it will, it just may rule it out. So what about how this customer is deploying? Are they deploying all the hosts up front warm, and they've got them running enough to host all of the VMs that they want to fail over? I guess they've got to store them in the host vSAN data store, right? But what are they doing? Are they relying on rapid scale out in time of failure, or what? I mean,
no. So right now they provision the SDDCs with the host count that they need for their planning for their first phase, which is roughly a year long. After that phase, they are going to have a secondary data center that they will populate with an additional cluster in SDDC.
Sure.
I guess they want to buy the second cluster right away.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Obviously, if they're provisioning just as just in case almost. Have they looked into any other solutions like the kind of the Datrium solution, which obviously we've just kind of acquired, but was that ever on the table, or?
Well, discussions with that are starting to come up now. Now that that acquisition has been made public, they were in the back end talking to Datrium directly, and now that it's coming under the VMware umbrella, we're being looped into the conversations.
I think that's something we're going to see more and more of, right? Because it's although it's great to have all of your hosts sitting there pre-populated and good to go. It's almost a little bit of a backward way of thinking, right? In terms of how cloud works, and that's how you used to pay for a DR service, right? From your old on-prem data center, you would pay a DR provider to guarantee you host capacity, and it would either be sitting there warm and powered on and ready, which was the the gold standard service, or slightly cheaper, they would kind of have one ready and then the rest would be available on demand. So yeah, in the default DR as a service mechanism, having them all on and ready is the gold service. But I think that's one of the reasons the rapid scale out functionality was released a couple of releases ago, right? The ability to scale out more than one node at a time for DR scenarios to make it kind of more cost effective.
And their timeline for migrating has been very aggressive. So their hosts are filling up rather quickly. So they're actually ahead of schedule. So they're happy because, as you mentioned, it's not like they just have the host there sitting there warmly and are burning money.
Are they migrating all to VMC then, or are they retaining an on-prem data center and then having some workloads in the cloud, and that's what's coming back on-prem and then syncing back out? Or
the majority of their workloads will be in VMC. They'll have a very small footprint on-prem. Okay,
so then in the future, would they look at doing directly linking the two VMC sites together again?
Correct. So once that data center is emptied, pretty much these all go away and they'll sync up through VPN.
Cool.
They're looking at VPN or possibly doing some type of WAN connection between everything.
Cool. And anything else you came up against? Any version constraints or anything from the on-prem that you had to overcome? I'm kind of thinking around that support stuff I was talking about earlier on, or are they fairly up to date on-prem?
They're fairly up to date. They're all at 6.5 and 6.7 for on-prem, so cool. They're also under support. Just minor issues that they had with other projects of setting up a VRA, connecting it up to the SDDC. They just had to work through because obviously some permissions are different.
Yeah.
You can't link directly to the NSX manager in the SDDC where you can on-prem. So little challenges like that seem to pop up.
Sure. It's interesting actually. So there's where are they? I guess they're either redeploying VRA in VMC at some point and migrating what's currently in on-prem over to VMC, or is that a service they're retaining on-prem for the time being?
For the time being, they're retaining VRA on-prem. Once everything is moved out, we'll have to see what they do from there.
Yeah, there is a service that's been built actually, it doesn't really improve, it doesn't change how VRA works, but it improves how it's deployed. I know internally the BU were asking for kind of customers to help them trial it out at the moment. I'm only calling this out in case anybody online right now is thinking about VRA. So they're looking at kind of almost like a one-click deploy like you have for HCX or SRM currently through the VMC portal. So they're looking at doing the same for VRA, which should, although it's not that difficult, it just makes the deployment slightly easier. And I guess that's the way everything will go, right? All services will or should be available as a one-click deploy. Yeah, absolutely. We have noticed across a number of customers actually challenges where caused by loads of things like their IP schema and overlapping ranges that are in use and various other things that have meant they've had to do things like just deploying VRA and VRO proxies into VMC, even though they're retaining on-prem and stuff. So yeah, I mean it's all doable, right? It's all achievable. It just means that they just have to maybe look at it slightly differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, is there anything else on the SRM DR as a service front, Ricky? If not, I'll thank you for your time. If there's any questions from anybody still online, feel free to ask Ricky now, or you can, if you're internally, you can obviously ping him direct.
No, that was it on the connectivity. Just some things that I saw and just want to kind of highlight again.
Can you guys hear me now, though?
Yay,
yes.
Stu, you're around.
All right, cool. All right, so for future reference, now I know how to make sure I get my correct microphone working. All right, that was really good discussion. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
No worries.
So.
I'm glad you joined us at the end anyway. You are a real person and not a bot. Cool. Well, thank you for that, Ricky. So what we typically do then at this stage is do a bit of a roundtable with the rest of the architects, find out what anybody's been working on. for me personally, I'll kick off this week, so I normally ask everyone else to jump in, and there's only a couple of the architects online today. So I've been I'm working with a number of kind of more secure than average customers right now, which I think I've mentioned previously, and we're having some interesting discussions and challenges around securing authentication to vCenter, and I'm hoping that we once we get a fully signed off solution, and this is the key, I guess, it's not just working, it's a fully accepted and signed off solution, I'll be able to share that with you. But we're doing some funky things around using managed Active Directory that's a native AWS service, and hooking that into be the identity source for vCenter, for example. So some interesting stuff around that is a bit of a learning curve around some of the native AWS services for me. So I hope I get to share some of that with you soon. And apart from that, just generally HCX migration work is always interesting and always ongoing. And we've got one customer who is kind of near the end of a fairly sizable cloud-to-cloud migration, and I would say actually the cloud-to-cloud migration from HCX has been pretty seamless. Actually, there's been nothing out of the ordinary or any gotchas we've come across from an HCX standpoint. They had an NSX issue along the way, but apart from that, everything has been going hunky-dory. So I just wanted to confirm I'm not surprised, but I'm impressed with the stability of HCX when performing large cloud-to-cloud migrations has kind of lived up to the hype in that sense. So that's pretty cool. And around from my sort of backlog, that's pretty much it. DeMarcus, have you been looking at or playing with anything cool of late?
No, not this week. Will has been just having customer calls and talking about i3E, and got a couple of new deployments, right, that they're going to go straight to i3EN. So we're just in the planning stages of all that right now.
Sure. So i3EN being the new i3 enhanced metal server that is now sort of available, and I will, just for those folks online, I'll say sort of available in the sense that it was released, it was made available, where are we? Here we go. Yeah, so back here on the 16th of June, from version 1.10 v4 onwards. Some of the functionality is not 100% available until the 1.12 or M12 release, but I don't think that's a huge part of it. So yeah, I'm starting to see an uptake in discussions around i3N as well. As you can see from the release notes, for those of you that don't know, it is effectively 4 times the storage in the box, and in a few releases time it will actually have 100 gig networking available to it as well. I think it's going to be capped at initial release, but it's certainly got more compute and a lot more storage in. Obviously it's a more expensive box, but it's financially wise, I think it's around 2.5 times the cost of an i3 for about 4 times the storage capacity. So could be a good option if you're currently storage bound. So yeah, I'm starting to see a number of those conversations as well, DeMarcus. Apart from that, I think that's it from the architect team. It's a bit of we've got a few folks out this week, so that's why it's a little bit quiet from our standpoint. But if anybody online has any questions at all, I'm just quickly checking all the Q&A and chat windows and stuff, or anything anybody else would like to discuss, then feel free to jump in. I'll just keep muttering and waffling as I do, so there's not radio silence for the next 30 seconds or so. Otherwise, if not, thank you everybody for joining. It's great to see you all here, and please remember to bring your questions and your queries with you for the next session. And for those of you watching via YouTube, as usual, this was up within 24 hours. It's past tense, isn't it? So thank you everybody. I look forward to catching you all again in a couple of weeks' time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Will.
Yes, thank you, Will.
Thanks, guys.